I went out and decided I was going to run a 10K faster than I'd ever run it before. And I did by about 34 seconds, I think. 34 seconds, yeah. And as a result, I'm going to cough a few times today. That has nothing to do with Gail Riplinger and people having their voices taken away from them. It has to do with the fact that if you go up on South Mountain in Phoenix today and look out over Phoenix, you're going to go, ugh, because we get this stuff, and we haven't had a weather system come through since about the 28th of January or something like that now, and it's getting ugly. So, anyway, let's look at what Gail Riplinger had to say. It is, as normal, a lengthy rant that wanders all over the landscape. She's one of the worst writers I've ever seen. She doesn't have an editor, evidently. And she just goes over here and then, oh, about this, oh, and over here, and it's amazing. But obviously, here is a lady who is certain, and she has traded all truth for absolute certainty. It is an insult-filled screed. It is childish in its level. Gail Riplinger has always been like this. Her little booklet, Blind Guides, she thinks that playing with people's last name is actually a meaningful form of argumentation. And so white lies and every type of use of the term white in alliteration or whatever else as an insult, she'll use it. She did that with everybody else in Blind Guides. She continues to do that. It's embarrassingly infantile, but she's an embarrassingly infantile woman. And that's what makes it amazing. I'm thankful for people like D.A. Wade. I'm not even sure. Could you check? Is D.A. Wade still alive? Why don't you Google D.A. Wade? I forgot to look. But at least people like D.A. Wade recognized that Gail Riplinger is really bad, even for King James onlyism. And he recognized she was dishonest. He called her out on things. There are people like that just simply will not completely shut down all critical thinking capacity in their mind. But you have to do that to follow Gail Riplinger. And just reading all this stuff, which makes it ironic that toward the beginning she says, she quotes from Philippians 4 about thinking about good things. Consequently, I haven't thought about James White for 20 years. She says, I ignored his attempts at defamation for 20 years, as if I've been talking about Gail Riplinger constantly for 20 years. Obviously, I haven't. Very rarely does she come up, and again, she has recently because of Kent Hovind. But I would point out, once again, she hasn't mentioned this part, but when I wrote the King James Only controversy, everything I wrote about her, someone on Twitter says, yes, D.A. Wade is still amongst the living. The reality is that when I wrote about her in the book, I sent everything I said about her to her via fax until she started hanging up the fax machine so she could not receive it. Would not respond. I invited her to respond. I invited her to make any comment she wanted about what I was saying about her in the book. She refused to have anything to do with it. And then contacted Bethany House, from my recollection, twice. Or at least Bethany House communicated with me about it twice. I got the impression that she had twice contacted them and threatened to sue them if they published the book. She hasn't mentioned that part either. So the defamation thing, remember, this is from a woman who can barely get through a paragraph without making fun of someone's name. This is a common sign of imbalanced people. They'll constantly accuse others of what they themselves do, just every other word. And then at the end of that paragraph, here's the line in parentheses. I have collated, consulted, or edited Bible translation in Farsi, ancient and modern Greek, French, Chinese, Hebrew, Syrian, Kala, Thado, Swahili, Telugu, Chichewa, Latin, and many other languages. Wow. Let me tell you something. I can guarantee you she can't read a word of any of that except maybe 4 words of Latin. Can't read a word of it. It's all... This is fantasy, folks. This is pure fantasy. If you think Gail Riplinger has facility in that many languages, really? The interior design lady? Okay, cool. You go for it. We're going to discover later that I have a couple of my logic textbooks with me because there are some really humorous things in here. I'll have to admit they're tremendously humorous stuff. I mean, her attempts at rescuing acrostic algebra. Did you know acrostic algebra is now symbolic logic? Yeah. The Lord gave it to her, but now it's symbolic logic. It's just, unbelievable. Okay. Couple other things. She throws all this stuff out about, well, there's this website over here, and these people have responded to James White, and then there's all this stuff over here, and it's just, it's everything but your kitchen sink. Throw it all out there. No serious argumentation. Just, well, this person's refuted him, and he's been refuted by that person, and blah, 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 blah. The standard type of thing you're doing when you're trying to cover for yourself. Because what's she trying to cover for? What she's trying to cover for is that the recordings of our encounter in November, and interestingly enough, the sermon audio numbering, you put November 1st on that.
I did not. Some of these recordings that we have up on Sermon Audio, I know the month that they were done in.
So is that why you
I don't know
November
the
1st?
exact day, so I simply chose the first.
Yeah, all right. November of 1993, KRDS Radio, the Pat Shaughnessy program, PS on the Air. 2 half-hour programs on consecutive days. What she's trying to do is to cover for her embarrassing performance in that encounter. Now, we have an extended list of my debates on my website. We do not list that as a debate. It was a informal debate, as most radio programs are, but there was no formal thesis, there was no moderator, so on and so forth. But it could be informally described in that way, as many people describe a lot of my radio programs. But we don't list it as one of those. She did horribly. She lost horribly. Anybody who listens to it just goes, what was that woman talking about? And so what started all this was Kent Hovind talking to her, and she's saying, well, that never happened. Well, he said it never happened. What do you mean it never happened? Well, actually, he just called into a radio program. Well, no, I didn't. I was in studio. Anybody can tell. And so with all these lies, I kept pushing back with the truth. And so finally she was forced to produce this screed, which has almost nothing to do other than to try to hide the reality of what took place in 19.